to strategic coaching.
How was it?
The first day I was dreading going for a lot of reasons that were all limiting beliefs, you know. I mean, I didn't feel like I qualified. I didn't feel like, you know, they're all like CEOs of very successful companies. I thought, oh my God, they're gonna call me out. They're gonna say, what the hell is she doing here? She doesn't belong here. So I really was apprehensive about going, and actually a lot of fear. So the first day was kind of tough. And actually, the interesting thing about the first day, Evan, and I think I mentioned this to you, is they talk a lot about the who, not how. They talk a lot about, which is when you're operating your business as a leader of a company and you have this vision for the company, it's not about how you create that vision, but who you put into place, right? So one of their big teachings is forget about the how, look at the who. The how is de-energizing, and the who is energizing.
Right.
And then the other thing was the 4x4, which we've talked about in this podcast, which I have to admit, when you showed it to me, and well, you did it to me. you filled out the 4x4, and then we had the conversation about it. I don't think I fully understood the potential of the 4x4. So after going through that and hearing the other CEOs and their concerns about it and their questions about it, and then having to flush all that out, it makes a heck of a lot more sense to me now than it did before. So basically my takeaway at the end of the first day was, I got this. Like, I'm already doing this stuff.
Yeah.
So when he called me out at the end, it was at the end of the day. I was hanging out. I was barely listening, right, to what they were doing.
You were that kid in class.
I was that kid in class. I looked attentive, but I really was like off in la la land. And so then he calls on me, and I had no idea what they were talking about. None. So I basically did what I always do, and I started laughing. And they all kind of looked at me, and I said, I'm not sure what to say. So then he repeated the question. And then I wasn't sure what to say because the question was, what's your takeaway?
Oh.
And my takeaway really was that I got this. Like, they're not telling me anything I don't already apply to my business. So I said that basically. I said, well, you know, I'm enjoying being here, and it's really great to be a part of this, you know, brilliant community. I said, but so far, everything that you've told me, I'm already applying to my business. And then I see him, and he kind of goes, and I went, but I'll tell you what I did. And then, of course, I made something up, which sounded really stupid. But anyway, you know, after I was thinking about it, later on I thought, you know, what I should have said was that I came here feeling very apprehensive about how successful I was as a leader and as a CEO. And this first day validated that I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
And that's what I should have said, which I didn't.
Because we always think about this stuff too late.
Yes.
I've been the like very, very lucky benefactor of being snuck into rooms that I'm not supposed to be part of. All that's to say is I really empathize with that feeling. And it's kind of weird when you find out that everybody else is kind of doing the same thing you are.
Yeah. Totally.
Like, either they just have a few more customers, or they've been in the game just a little bit longer, but you're kind of at the same level as a lot of these other people. As long as you're in a room that's not like with 25 billionaires and they're running 5,000 person organizations, everybody's just kind of a normal person. And then when you realize that everybody's a normal person, and then you realize that you too are a normal person, it kind of removes that mountaintop view that you have of certain like people or of yourself when you get to that point.
Right. Totally.
Yeah, it's like when you get to these points and you realize that nothing changed, or like you're still the same person that you were, I think it's really empowering to be like,
Right?
That's okay because everybody else is there too.
Yes, same insecurities, same bad habits and good habits, but same habits. And I would hear people ask questions. One woman asked a question that was so right on target for me, and it had to do with motivation. And I thought, oh my gosh, here's this very, very successful woman. And she was talking about, how do I keep myself motivated?
Wow.
And I deal with that on a pretty regular basis. How do I, because I tend to get bored.
Mm-hmm.
How do I keep myself motivated? So it was just really, really fascinating to be in this room of people who are high achievers and to hear the same conversations echoed through their questions and their conversations that are in my head.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, fascinating.
Yeah, everybody's the same.
Mm-hmm. I'll tell you, today I'm feeling like holy crapola because now I have to step up to the plate. Like before, I could just la la la. It's like when you know better, you do better. Well, that's not always the case. When you know better, you need to do better.
You need
Yeah.
to do better.
And so now I'm in that, okay, I know better now. Now I need to do better.
The sense of accountability after my first time at Strategic Coach, the sense of accountability that was, I have to perform now,
Yep.
was extremely stressful.
Yeah, that's a little bit of what I'm feeling today.
It occupied my entire quarter. I was just thinking about Strategic Coach and how I had to execute on what I learned,
Mm-hmm.
so I could go back to Strategic Coach and like just trusting in the process. Kind of like, if I blindly trust these people for 3 months, what's the worst that happens? I lose my business, everything goes down, and like I end up living on the street, right? But like if you blindly trust these people, you assume that they have a process for a reason. Like what happens, and so that's kind of what I did. Also, I wanted to be able to go back to my second meeting and kind of say, hey, it worked, which fortunately it did.
Right.
But
So you're working the plan now.
yeah, I'm blindly following right now. And
So
blindly
what-
following
yeah, I was
would
going
mean
to
like,
say a little bit about what that means.
so like treating problems as who and not how problems is the easiest one to like speak to right now. I have started to elevate, not delegate. So it's important to clarify that difference. Elevating work would be having somebody else who is better at doing that task or accomplishing that goal than I am do the work. Delegating would be, I can do this, it's fine, I don't really want to do it, and like here, open the mail or something like that. But like if I'm elevating something, it's because it's important, and it's so important that I shouldn't do it.
So we haven't learned that part yet. That's interesting.
You're gonna love it. So treating it as treating every problem now as a who problem, not a how problem.
Mm-hmm.
I have started to elevate solutions to my team members, and if the team members weren't good at whatever it was, having somebody else take on that role. In the process, my payroll has gone up significantly. Also, so have revenues, number of clients, number of customers, and number of products. And so, like, that's kind of the weird part of this whole world is, like, I cannot go back now to the way that, like, to operating the way that I used to, because I've seen what the world looks like now. On top of that, so, like, it's easy to say, okay, you just, like, bankroll this payroll for a couple months until, like, investments start getting returned. But at the same time, I started taking free days, which are days totally off. I don't work those days. And that was an extremely stressful thing for the first 3 months.
I don't want to derail this conversation. So remember where you are.
Yeah.
But I want to say a little something about free days. Nothing got more like anxiety. It created more anxiety and conversation than the conversation around free days in
I'm
this group
sure.
of CEOs.
You'd think there's a rebellion in there.
It was totally, they were like, I can't possibly do, I mean, yeah, it was like a rebellion.
And then you tell, my favorite part, at least from when I was there, my favorite part was when our coach told the room, and you're not allowed to plan your week on Sunday night.
Yeah, yeah. One of the things that was a revolt was when our coach said, and you can't read business books. They were like, well,
Oh my
can I
gosh, yeah.
read? Oh, yeah, you can read. Well, oh, great, I could read. And she said, no, you have to read like a useless beach read. You cannot read anything that's going to get your mind in the business frame of mind.
Mm-hmm.
It was hysterical. I just watched the whole thing and laughed. Although I'm guilty,
Yeah.
totally. But it was fun to watch. Anyway,
So looking at free days, taking free days. So now I've decided that I was going to increase my payroll. I was going to increase the number of people on the team. I was going to do less work, and I was going to do less work on in actually the business, and so my expenses increased, and I was going to take entire days off. I hadn't taken a day off in 24 months. And that included vacations.
because you're always working.
Because you're always on, right?
I mean, you may be on the beach, but you're checking your email. You're doing social media posts.
You're reading a business book.
Reading a business book. You're
learning.
talking about business to your, partner or whoever's with you.
That's interesting you brought that up because, I was just sitting here thinking, when was the last time I didn't check an email or I didn't, maybe not just related to everything. And I think it's been 3 years. And I had a conversation with Aaron. Well, he had the conversation with me, and he just finally said, he was like, listen, you and I both work really hard. At the end of the day, we need to talk about other stuff than what's going on with my job and what's going on with your business, because it's exhausting. And I was like, wait, yeah, you're right. We would just be getting annoyed with each other about the dumbest small things. And it was because it was just constant. There was never a break. There was never a time where we were just having fun.
And Carl and I, because we were the only married couple that were at the strategic coach, the coach called us out as, and you guys can't talk business.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at Carl and I said, oh my God, we're going to have to come up with something else to talk about.
Yeah.
I mean, Evan knows our whole life is related to our businesses.
Oh, yeah. I'm sure.
It's easy when the business is a hobby.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
So we're going to have to come up with a whole new
What are you gonna
conversation.
talk about? Right.
I don't know.
Well, or you could just do what we started doing. We just decided to redo our entire house. Because what else do you do at that point?
That's true. That would be a good idea, actually. Our house does need a little bit of...
I mean, honestly, what did we do last night? We were putting together a grill.
And then you have to talk about the instructions for putting
Right.
together the grill.
Gotta talk about something. Talk about why Hazel's running into the fence and doesn't seem to find that to be an issue.
Yeah, I mean, we don't have kids to talk about.
Right.
Right.
We could talk about our family, but they're all doing good. What do you keep...
And they're all running businesses. And so
yeah.
now
Oh,
it's
yeah.
you can't talk about what they're doing because they're all doing business, and you're about to talk about business.
Yeah.
Right?
We've started either so we have redone everything in our house, and so he loves houses, I love the design aspect, and so now what we're doing is talking about what do we want our house in 5 to 7 years to look like. So we want to build a house because we're psychos, and that's something that will put our energy somewhere. And then planning trips, we love to travel, so it's actually planning out trips where we're not planning it to go around the blog. We're not planning it for other aspects, just to be there.
Yeah. Yeah, because yours is such a lifestyle blog.
Yeah.
And you're your brand.
Yeah.
So...
Did you hear that quiver in my voice?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, how do you keep a piece of your life separate from that? That's...
Yeah, that's really difficult. I mean, it just got into the point where there's just certain stuff I never talk about and I won't ever kind of approach, but then I don't know. It's very difficult. It's hard for me because that's why I was sitting here listening to you guys, everything you were saying. And I was like, even when we were on our honeymoon, I was working. I mean,
Yeah.
It didn't feel like I was working. And it's weird because he loves my blog as much as I do. And so he handles a lot of the logistical side of stuff.
Is he one of your photographers?
When we're traveling, he takes
was
a lot
wondering.
of my pictures. Yeah, he's gotten really great at it. He used to get like my feet, and I'm like, where's the rest of my body?
You taught him to make sure he goes from above.
Yeah, I was like, just like make sure I'm in the photo, like you can see my face too. But yeah, no, he takes when I'm here, he doesn't really take anything unless we're like out on the weekend doing something together. But that was how I had to like separate it, because he doesn't enjoy that aspect by any means. He enjoys like everything else that comes along with the blog, but he hates the photo side. So I work with like photographers when I'm here, but when we travel, I mean, it's even gotten to the point where he's like, will it make sense money-wise to bring a photographer on vacation? And I'm like, no, it won't. Like, suck it up and take a photo.
Yeah, somebody asked me that question. Who takes the photos when she's on vacation? I said, well, I'm guessing she uses a tripod or something.
I've actually never used one on vacation, but when we're going to Mexico, I'm bringing one, because there's just so many places like around there that he basically told me I get 20 minutes from him a day for photos. And let's be realistic, that's not enough. But then I also was sitting here being like, wait, if I'm taking pictures and I'm posting stuff, it's weird for me to then think like that's actually work too.
Yeah. Do you need to be doing any more than 20 minutes per day?
Right. No, I know. Like I shouldn't be at all. I also like constantly think about everything. So I don't know how to, like, I'm trying to really shut that off in my mind, but
that is definitely one of my challenges.
It's hard.
I don't care where I am. I'm always seeing the world through the lens of my business.
Yeah.
And the work that I do.
Yeah.
And that means everything that I see, I'm applying. Oh my gosh, look at those flowers. We could do those flowers at the butt of my house. Oh my gosh, look at how they did it. Everything, even, architectural design, everything that I see and do is, experience is through that lens of bettering those companies.
Yeah. So I think my plan is I'm just going to do 20 minutes every day when we're on vacation, because I would do more if I like had the opportunity. And then other than that, I'm just going to be like, take my phone, replace it with a very cold drink, and I won't care.
Yeah.
Like, just don't give me access to my phone.
Yeah. I'm really seriously considering this. Like, how are Carl and I going to make this work? And I'm wondering if it means that we have to find some new friends, people that aren't associated with the business. I mean, how do you?
That's been actually the hardest part for me, because I try so hard now to make a hard distinction between when I'm working and when I'm not working. And so when I'm working, I'm extremely intense. And like, I have a list of 20 things that are going to happen today, and we're going to get all 20 of them done. But when I'm not working, what I've found is like the people closest to me now think that like my not talking about business is a reflection of them.
Interesting.
Because I used to always talk about it, and then all of a sudden one day it flipped, and now I'm not talking about business with them anymore.
It's like you don't appreciate their opinion or something they don't value.
Right. I've gotten that feedback twice in the last 7 days. And so...
That's so interesting.
Right. That's actually been the most difficult part, is how do you create a new, like, small part of my world how do I create a small part of my world that has absolutely nothing to do with business, and the people there don't care about business? In fact, to them, the conversation is boring.
Right.
And so now when I am taking time away, I have to be really engrossed in whatever's going on with those people. Right. And that therefore allows me to not be thinking about work.
That's so, yeah. How do you do that? Because I'm just sitting here thinking about like every single person that I am really good friends with. Either they're from Atlanta and we met because we worked at Carter's together. And so, like, they've been there through everything. Like, what the heck do you do? I don't know.
Yeah, right now, like, I've left the conversations at the point that's like, it's not about you, it's about me. I'm just trying to, like, have balance, which I hate that word. But, like...
You know what I've been saying?
It's what?
Which is probably not a good word, but I've been saying I need to have boundaries. Oh. So, like, Aaron and I have boundaries. And
really powerful.
Yeah. Like, Aaron and I have boundaries in our marriage, and those boundaries are that, like, after 7 p.m. or something, like, we don't talk about certain stuff at work. And because to me, for some reason, balance, I'm like, oh, I can let it slide. But when I hear the word boundary, I'm like, don't cross that. Bad things happen.
Right.
At least in my mind.
I think it's powerful. And I think it's a great way of reframing it.
Yeah.
I don't think balance exists.
It doesn't.
Personally, I think that whatever area of your life needs focus is what you're going to focus on.
Mm-hmm.
And there are naturally going to be other areas. You can only focus on one thing at a time.
Right.
There are naturally going to be other areas of your life that are going to, your focus is going to be less because it has to be. And then, you'll need to focus on that part of your life.
Right.
And then it's kind of like.
Yeah, I have like 2 questions. So my first question is, have you become like happier?
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes. And less stressed.
Less stress.
Less stress with more going on and at times higher leverage.
Interesting. Yeah. And are you enjoying like your business more? Or has that stayed the
No,
same?
I think that's stayed the same. Like, I still enjoy the business. I really enjoy taking time off, which is kind of scary.
Yeah.
I can get used to that. It's funny how quickly that flips. No, I still enjoy the business quite a bit. I just enjoy the business for different reasons now. It is in elevating myself out of the business a little bit more and having a team of people who are all better at what they do than I am at anything, working inside of it. It has allowed me to focus on what I'm really good at and what I like to do, and that's it. And so now I've started to build this team that is only doing what they're good at, and I'm only doing what I'm good at. But, like, as a whole, the whole gets stronger because of it.
Right.
And so, like, I like the business the same amount. I just do different stuff during the day.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm Annamarie Ferniak, a mindfulness teacher, entrepreneur, and urban revitalizer. In 2019, I published my first meditation with Insight Timer. To listen to these meditations, please download the Insight Timer app from your app store and search Annamarie Ferniak. Thank you so much for listening. The one thing that kind of threw me a little bit with that, I'm going to call it a tripod. The tripod of free days, focus days. What's the third one?
Buffer days.
Buffer days. I'm not really good. We've talked a little bit about one of my core values is freedom. I'm not really good at fitting into those, like being regimented like that. So I'm
It's
a little
not-
afraid of how that's going to.
Yeah, so we'll chat about that. So first of all, a free day is a day where you do no work. A focus day is a day where you only focus on revenue generating opportunities. You're only focused on making money. And a buffer day is kind of a to-do list day. And so a buffer day is like you're just going to do random stuff that you've been putting off. You're going to learn new skills, and you're going to do like business related reading. So it's not like for people who don't know.
Yes, no, I get it.
So it's not within the free day or within the buffer days and the focus days. I found what I do is I plan a focus day, or on my focus days, anything that looks interesting, like it could be a buffer activity, I just have a list of things. And then on those buffer days, I'm just going through the list. And so focus days are very regimented. Buffer days, those to-do list days are kind of like I'm hanging out, we're going to get a lot of stuff done, but like most of it's mostly procedural and like we're just crossing checklist items off.
Mm-hmm.
I think what you'll find is that by regimenting certain days, you'll have more freedom and not less, because not all of your time is valuable anymore.
Mm.
So like when you live in a world, at least this is what happened to me, when I lived in a world where every day was a work day and it was just another work day, every minute was valuable, even if I was doing nothing. But now, if I have a free day, like none of that time is valuable. Like I can spend an hour doing something that I would normally like. I can spend an hour making dinner instead of going out to dinner or like just buying takeout or whatever, because that time isn't necessarily that valuable to me, because I know that the valuable time where I would need to go necessarily buy dinner is going to be on a focus day.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've found that I have more freedom by building in kind of flexibility into my buffer days and having all the time in the world on free days. than I used to have. I used to have to actually be more regimented.
They're having fun out there. It's a little distracting. Sorry, Evan.
That's okay.
Yeah, that's what they were saying at the strategic coach, is that it sounds like daunting because I think CEOs are kind of like cowboys. They really do like their freedom. That's why they don't work for anybody.
Right.
And so to ask a group of people who are self-starters anyway, highly motivated to achieve, to ask them to all of a sudden group their week, their 7 days, into these 3 quadrants.
Mm-hmm.
It was really funny, but I have to admit, I actually walked away going, oh my God, I'm not sure if I could do it. And, one of the things that was really confusing for me is the idea of the revenue. So focus days are only revenue generating. And I kept saying, I'm not a revenue generator. That's what my team does. They're the ones that generate the revenue. So what do I do on a focus day? And I'm still a little bit like, what do I do on a focus day if I don't generate revenue? And then I had a meeting with Jen yesterday, and we're putting together a whole sales funnel for corporate wellness. And I realized that conversation with her fits into the revenue generation. So it's anything that I would do that would be creating value that creates revenue is how I'm kind of my takeaway. Yeah. So I'm kind of beginning to get it a little bit. I think there's still a little bit of a gray area in my head, and I imagine that'll flush out as I go through my days and I can compartmentalize and see what it is I actually do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes at the end of the day, like at the end of yesterday, I finished the day and went, oh my God, I was running the entire day from appointment to appointment, but what did I do?
Mm-hmm.
I have no idea really what I did. I was picking paint colors. I was doing pretty much everything. So I'm kind of looking forward to seeing how that flushes out over the next couple months.
Yeah. So a revenue generating day doesn't necessarily mean you're hitting the pavement going door to door.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, that's not really what I do.
Right. That's a how problem, or that's a how solution, not a who solution.
Right.
But if you're doing an activity that will at some point either make you money or could make you money, so building a sales funnel or recording a podcast.
Right.
Like,
yes. She did say recording podcasts, and I'm thinking, okay, it reframed the way I think about my podcast because I've never thought of podcasts as revenue generation.
Every podcast that we record is always on a focus day for me.
Interesting.
Yes. So I plan meetings with key customers, and I plan a podcast for one day out of the whole week. So one focus day is already broken up, just like making sure that the money is still there, and we're recording podcasts for marketing purposes. And then I have other focus days that are more aimed at new revenue. But like if I'm speaking to a group of people, that's a focus activity because they could turn into customers, right? I'm building my brand or the company's brand.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm working with my team on how our products are going to enhance more people's lives, that's a focus activity. Especially if what we're working on is how are we going to make the product a little bit stickier, right?
Interesting.
A buffer activity is like when I go through my finances. It's like one of those annoying things that you just have to do, but you do it. I also save a lot of email for buffer days. Ooh, that's a new one. Oh, you're not going to like this. Okay. So one of the things that I've started to do since I've like implemented this new time system is I leave emails.
I knew you were going to say that.
Mm-hmm.
That's stressful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Here's what I've found. Like, it's only one person's, like, story about it. But when I don't look at my email on free days, and then I get back into the office Monday morning.
So Monday's a buffer day?
Monday's always a buffer day, and Friday's almost always a buffer day.
Okay.
Now, Fridays, I might have focus activities, but it's labeled as a buffer day. That way I can, like, start the week getting organized, end the week organized. And it's like cleaning your room. Like, you know how you feel really good after you clean your room, and you kind of like, oh,
it's like what
no,
I do before the cleaning lady comes.
Yeah, same. I'm like, why the heck are you coming?
That's how I have the weekend. the weekend is with a clean room or a clean business. And then I get into the office on Monday with something between 200 and 500 emails. And it takes me 1 hour to go through all the emails because I'm only focused on email for that hour.
Yeah.
And then focus day, you don't do it. And it takes you an hour on another buffer day to go through all your emails.
So have you gotten any flack from people who are waiting a couple days to receive a response?
No.
Interesting.
The key people that where I care about their opinion, I told them you might just need to wait a couple days on a response. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. I've seen the email. I'm just not responding to it. I mean, if that does happen where, hey, you left me 48 hours without responding to an email, like, deal with it. And with my team, they've found that if they send me an email and I don't respond in a couple of days and it's time sensitive, they can just take the initiative and do whatever they think is the best decision. And so now it turned their how problem into a who solution.
Oh, so interesting. We just had, so you know how we did that, the 4x4 quadrants, and my company's solution to that originally was to do agreements. And we kind of talked a little bit about agreements. So we just revisited our agreements the other day. And one of the agreements that I made was that if it's not time sensitive, send me an email. If it's time sensitive, send me a text. But now I'm going to have to reevaluate that. It's going to be, if it is time sensitive, deal with it. Huh.
I used to, for the first quarter after I implemented the time system, it was send me a text or a Skype message if it's urgent. I have since gotten to the point where if it is urgent, you do not want my help.
I basically classified urgent as if the building is burning down.
Yeah.
Contact me. Otherwise, I don't want to hear from you. And they were like, seriously? I said, really? You know, what's the worst that can happen? The building burns down. You guys are capable.
I also think too, once again, going back to boundaries. So there's only 3 quote unquote clients that have my phone number, my cell phone number, because I don't want you to always feel like you can just shoot me a text about something that really isn't anything. I mean, we have a different working relationship, and I feel like you understand all of this. But some people would send me a text and be like, hey, did you see that email I just sent you 5 minutes ago? Okay, well, first of all, if I was paying for text messages right now, this would be a waste. It's easy to lose any sense of separating work in your life when everyone has complete full access to you.
Agreed.
And that's something I struggle with when it comes to Instagram, because everyone has complete and full access from me. I've received emails from brands on the weekends. I don't look at email on the weekend, and then they will slide into my DMs and be like, did you see that email that we sent you? And I'm just sitting there thinking, it's a Saturday at noon. I'm not, I did, it popped up on my phone, but I'm not responding, and you shouldn't be expecting to receive a response from me until Monday. It's interesting.
It is interesting. And actually, as I was going through this process, I was thinking about Instagram. So Instagram was in the back of my mind because, and correct me if I'm wrong, their algorithms kind of place you based on your response time to those DMs, right?
Right.
So if you're not responding, they're not going to rank you quite as high in the algorithm.
So do you want to know what I found really interesting? We were having this conversation last week. Since we went to New Orleans, so I don't know, a month or so, I have been on Instagram stories less, unless there's something that's big that's going on. And I probably respond to DMs 2 times a day, and that's it. I have been gaining way more followers a week and keeping them than I ever was when I was so active on there. So I don't know what the heck's going on, but we're exploring stuff.
So those algorithms maybe all talk?
I think a lot of it is talk. There's definitely an Instagram algorithm fully. I just think what it is, there was a lot of noise around like you need to be active 24/7. I think that was literally to make people active on their app. Like I
Right.
think that that's fully what it was. Because the stuff that I've seen is that the more I act like a quote unquote normal human, like who isn't using it for business, the better I'm doing overall. So that's just like my one
Thank you.
my 1 cent.
I
Not
appreciate
even
that
2
because
cents.
I am figuring out how to manage that.
It's hard.
You know,
It's
how
really
to,
hard.
because I do my own Instagram, as you guys well know.
And your Facebook page. I mean, I receive all of your notifications. I mean, you receive messages all the time.
You get messages all the time.
All the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, I know.
It's hard.
And figuring out how to, because I mean, I have to say that my family and my friends and my teammates pretty much know that when I want to be available, I'm available. And when I don't want to be available, I'm not available.
Yeah.
I mean, I call back kind of when I want to.
Yeah.
But I definitely want people to know that I'm paying attention
Mm-hmm.
and that it's me who's responding
Absolutely.
and that I care about,
Mhm.
you know, what they're saying and how how I'm interacting with them, how they're
Yeah.
interacting with me. So maybe I just need to put a message somewhere that says, hey, you know, I'm really a proponent of taking time off. And so
Mhm.
I'm walking the walk. And
I think a lot of it too, like I don't want anyone to ever think that like sending me a message is like a waste of time or anything
Right.
like that. Like I respond to every single thing. But I want to make sure that like if I'm spending 1 or 2 hours responding to every single thing, like that's all I'm doing. So it's like just being really intentional. Like if you send me, I mean, if you're sending me a DM at 10 p.m. at night, I like pray to the Lord. You're not expecting to receive something back at 10 p.m. kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like people understand more than like I used to give them credit for. I used to think people would just get like really angry, like, oh, she's not paying attention to me. And I think the more I've like talked to people, the more that they understand like we're really busy and there's a lot of stuff going on, and they just appreciate when you get back to them. That isn't meaning that I'm going like 48 hours without like responding to anyone.
Right.
But I don't know.
Yeah.
I think people
Interesting.
are like more forgiving than they used to be, maybe.
Yeah.
I think everybody's busy.
Yeah.
Like everybody's life is as complicated as ours is.
Yeah.
It's like they understand. If they don't understand, they might not be somebody that I want to work or interact with anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's no hard feelings. I wish you the best of luck.
Isn't that a weird place to be in?
Yeah.
Yeah. Because
It kind of is. Yeah.
yeah, I finally got to that place where I was like, you know what? There's only certain people I want to work with, and that's okay. But it's strange.
Yeah. There was a whole conversation about that too at Strategic Coach, about the people that you surround yourself with.
Mm-hmm.
And I agree 100%. And yet I feel it's important that we don't wear blinders.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm always looking for how to set up those boundaries rather than using the word balance. I like your
Yeah.
word boundaries. Yeah, I mean, how do we, because I think that oftentimes that's where real growth happens, is through those conflicts.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do we continue our own evolution and personal growth through those things that maybe we don't want to look at
Mm-hmm.
that's happening in the world or even in our family or our friends, and not sequester ourselves away from it
Mm-hmm.
and surround ourselves with only people who are like us? Then we never evolve.
So something that I've been doing, I like walked away from a client situation because it wasn't a good situation. There wasn't anything that was like toxic or anything like that. It was just there was no respect for like the work that was being put out there, but there also wasn't any respect for like my time.
Mhm.
And so I walked away from that, and then other aspects of my life, like when it came to business, like multiplied. And something that I've been doing is surrounding myself with people who do not think the same way as I do, but they have the same values that I have.
Good point. Yes,
So
good
it's
point.
like we're on the same journey together, but like we operate differently.
Mhm.
And that like I just want to be around people that are super positive. Like it's just that is so important to me more than anything. Like coming from the like dealing with one client that just wasn't of that mindset, that's draining, and that affects other aspects too. So I completely agree with what you're saying. I think that like it's not putting blinders on. It's just being like ultra sensitive to protecting kind of your circle.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the hot phrase is surround yourself with people who are different than you. The problem is if you don't have anybody who has a similar mindset as you do, it's really hard for you to figure out what your mindset is.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you do share those common values and you share a common outlook on the world, then I want to hear about your different experiences and skill sets and like stories and all of these things that make you you. But I know that the way that you and I see the world at like a very, very high level,
Mm-hmm.
it matches mine.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. You guys totally reframed it for me.
Yay!
Because it really is, I guess, about values.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I was going through the iRest, which is a type of meditation that is geared towards people who have stress disorders, PTSD, anxiety, chronic pain. I went through the level 1 certification. Before that, I would never watch horror movies. I never watched anything that was, maybe light thrillers, murder mysteries, nothing with gore. I really surrounded myself with happy people, and I kept my world, pretty clean. Mentally, physically, everything clean.
Yeah.
And then I did this class, and one of the things that the head of this organization, the person who piloted it, his name is Richard Miller, said was that he would intentionally put himself in places that were what we might call toxic. He would intentionally watch those really hard movies. He would intentionally be in circles of people who were, drug addict, all that kind of stuff. And the reason was so that when he is working with people who are challenged, he can be fully with them.
Interesting.
And not have the judgments, right? Those negative judgments. And that kind of flipped my perspective a little bit. So now I do kind of intentionally at least look at those parts of our society that maybe before I was just, living my life, driving my car, going to work, hanging out with my friends. So now through this conversation, I'm getting kind of even a clearer understanding of what that could look like.
I think the intentionality is important, and there's intentionality in not being with those groups too.
Yeah.
So, in limiting the amount of time that you're spending there to only how can you best provide value for them in whatever way that they need it, and how can they best provide what you're looking for, and it's limited from there on out. Now, there's that surface level, we're going to have whatever exchange that we need to have in terms of how can I help you live a better life and how can you help me live a better life. But then you start to get down to these, what are your core values? What are my core values? Are my core values wrong? Am I going to judge you for yours? And you don't need to get all the way down there.
Right.
Yeah, I also think that if we take a look, I take a look on the last, I don't know, let's say 10 years of my life. And until I was probably about 19, I was super, super, super judgmental of any woman who was in a abusive relationship or anything like that. All I would say is, how could you let yourself continue to go through that? I found myself in a situation like that. And would I ever wish that anyone would go through that? 100% no. But that allowed me to have a different and softer and forgiving kind of approach to women in that way, and which led me to what I'm doing now through Instagram and all of that. I never want to be anywhere close to those people that I was around before, but I get what you're saying. It lets you approach a group of people where they are, but also staying so fully removed from it too. So I also think that things happen through our lives that we don't fully understand why they're happening or what that's going to lead to at the end. And even though I'm 4 years removed from that, I can still understand why somebody might be going through that or is in that situation. Yeah. I don't know if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's that word keeps coming back to me, which is boundaries. It's even if you find yourself in these communities that are really challenging, setting an intention and the boundary that this is a learning opportunity.
Absolutely.
And what can you, what kind of value can you bring to them, and what value do they bring to your life? And rather than just kind of plugging in, you know, to what's happening with them, their toxicity, there is this bubble or boundary that you've created.
Yeah, fully.
Where the energy that's given and then received is intentional.
Yeah. I just had a conversation with one of my good friends who's still in Atlanta, and she's been in like a very toxic relationship for like 5 or 6 years now. And I had an 1.5 hour long conversation where I just listened to everything that she was saying. And I feel like if this would have been a year ago, I would have left that conversation being like, I need to fix her problems and I need to like so emotionally drained. But creating that bubble around yourself, I could just listen. And I left it being like she's going in a better direction, but like I didn't lose any of my emotional energy from it.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. I mean, it's a hard place to even get to. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So all this came out of a conversation about strategic
I was
coaching.
going to say, this really took a turn.
Hi, I'm Annamarie Ferniak, a mindfulness teacher, entrepreneur, and urban revitalizer. In 2017, I launched Align Mindfulness, which is a free app available in your app store. I wanted subtle reminders to bring me into self-awareness. The app sends prompts 3 times a day, bringing attention to one aspect of your world. These reflections help build a well-rounded mindfulness muscle. It's intentionally simple and meant to supplement other apps as well as your meditation routine. Thank you so much for listening.
But when you so closely identify with your business, and now you're making this radical change in your life, like this is how it goes.
Right.
I do want to say, for the record, it's not that like we take free days or we do less inside of our business because we don't want to work. It's because we love the business so much that we know that like we have to change in order for the business to transform.
That's an interesting thing too, because I feel like anytime I'm not working, or like in the past if I'm not working, I am putting a judgment on myself that's like, you are failing right now. Like you're slacking and you have a million things you could be doing. So it's almost like, I'm sure nobody was thinking that. Like that was just me. I mean, you're taking 1 day off. Nobody cares. That's just you putting that on yourself.
I'm violently shaking my head.
But so you have to be able to like give yourself that freedom, that mental freedom and forgiveness.
That is so it. That is so
it's so, I mean, heck, it's so hard. I can't even get there. I'm still trying.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
The guilt.
Yeah.
I feel when I'm not working.
And too.
Even mentally.
Yeah.
I still feel guilt.
Yeah. I mean, I like will see people on Instagram who we've known each other for a long time. Their businesses are doing great. And they are inside of their business 7 days a week, every single week, every month. And they, just one that's popping to my mind, jumped on stories the other day and said that she always wakes up at like 4:30 in the morning. That's when her day starts. And she woke up, went to get ready, and she just physically like couldn't. Like she was so exhausted. And I'm sitting there being like, yeah, because you need to take a break. Like you have to give yourself that opportunity to rest. And so then she was like, yeah, I just like went back to bed for another 4 hours. I just had to. But you could tell she felt guilty about it. And at the end of the day, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
Nobody cares what you're doing.
And somebody is always working. And so, like, for you to judge yourself, for me to judge myself, because I see somebody else working, like, they're not working when I am working at some point.
Yeah.
It's not a matter of this person works harder than I do. It's like they just work on a different schedule than I do.
And too, like, work smarter.
Yeah.
Not harder.
Yeah.
Imagine
something to
if
be
you
said
could
for that.
work every day with the energy that you have the day you get back from vacation.
That wouldn't be good for me. I'm very exhausted when I come back from vacation.
Do you have travel anxiety?
What do you mean?
Like, is flying
Oh, no.
stressful for you?
No. I think Aaron just like goes all out in vacation, so it actually feels like I'm running a marathon, and then I come back and I just really, you got nothing from me for like 2 days. If I could work every day, like, you know that high when you close a deal that's like a really big deal? If I could work every day with off of that kind of high feeling, watch out.
Well, you bring up a really good point. I mean, the fact is I get a real high off of a lot of the work I do.
Yeah.
Like when I teach meditation, I leave that meditation space feeling like I could take on the world.
Mm-hmm.
So, I really do get a lot out of the work I do. And therein lies one of the challenges
Therein
that I
lies a
face.
problem.
I
But
also
maybe
was-
if you start the meditation on a focus day, the rest of your focus day is going to go incredibly.
That's very true. If I teach on a focus day.
If you teach one class on a focus day, first it's a revenue generating opportunity
Mm-hmm.
because you're delivering a product.
Uh-huh.
And second, it's going to help you with the rest of all of them.
That's a really,
And it's not to
really
say
good suggestion.
You can't meditate or even lead a meditation when you're on a free day. You just can't do it at your facility,
Right.
and you can't do it for money.
Wait, so there are loopholes?
Well, a meditation is a meditation, right? Like, you're not delivering a product at that point.
Right.
You're doing it for you first.
Yeah, my
not
own
for the business.
meditations are different. I mean, I really enjoy my own personal meditations. I just don't get the same kind of high off of them as when I lead a meditation or when I'm meditating with a group.
Mm-hmm.
There is a certain energy that's developed in that community of people that's just, wow, it's incredible.
It's like a fitness instructor is still going to work out on a free day,
Right.
but they're not going to train anybody.
Mm.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, I get that. Yeah, I'm curious, as when we were talking about guilt, I was curious at what point in my life I all of a sudden felt guilty about not working. Like, I wonder where in the world that came from.
I've always felt that way.
When I was a kid, I could do nothing for days and not ever think about it. I was never a really great student in school, so studying wasn't a big deal. If I got a B on my test, I was happy. I was one of those people who just squeaked by because I wanted to go and read the next novel.
Right.
Reading was a big deal.
Yeah. I guess ever since, like, I'm trying to think, even my first internship or something like that, if I wasn't constantly doing something for it, I guess it was a fear that you were gonna be let go, or I don't know. Because I remember when I worked at Carter's, I would work until like 6, go eat dinner, work out, go home, jump back on email because we worked with our partners overseas, and I would be on email until like 9:30 or 10 p.m. And it got to the point where my manager was like, "You need to stop, like, please." And even when she said
Your manager said that.
my manager
Wow.
said that to me. She was like, "You need to get off of your email. Like, nobody else is doing this. It's going to be okay." And that was a weird thing for me because I was like, "Well, don't you want this? Don't you want me doing all of this?" But she was just so much of the mindset that like, work is work. Your home life is your home life. And I was just a single chick living in Atlanta who had nothing to do in the evening. So
Except work, yeah.
yeah.
I do think in some ways it becomes an addiction
Yeah, and a habit.
and a habit.
Yeah.
So changing that a little bit at a time.
Yeah. And there's also a part of you too that, like, I would do it and you almost like I wasn't doing it because I was selfish. I can't say what I'm trying to say. You kind of get what I'm trying to say. Selflessly doing it to, like, help the company go further. I was doing it so that my managers would see, like, what a hard worker I was and that they'd want to promote me. Like, it wasn't something that I was just doing to do. So
Right.
I feel like when you kind of figure out what your intentions are, that also helps.
I think it starts a little like with school, where at least in the environments that I've been in, the number of hours that I worked was equivalent to like how successful I was going to be. Like it's a very linear way of thinking, where the more hours that you work, the more successful you're going to be. And so if you work fewer hours, then you're going to be less successful.
Yes.
Right. And then I think like with that, if you're doing anything at any point that is hourly, like time is money.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then you get programmed into this mindset that is, if I'm not working, I'm not making money. If I'm not making money, I'm not going to be successful. If I'm not going to be successful, nobody's going to love me.
Yep.
Well, you just summed it all up right there, huh?
Yes, I get it. Yeah, because that's my first couple years of, well, my first 20, 30 years of work life. I was working for myself, but time, I was making money on my time. I was an interior designer. If I wasn't working, I wasn't making any money.
Mm-hmm.
But now this is very different because it's not dependent on me personally to generate revenue.
And when your revenue is not dependent on the amount of time that you work.
Right. Fascinating. Oh my goodness. So, what do you guys think? Sum it up.
Goodness. We talked about a lot of stuff.
We did. Thank you, Strategic Coach.
Thank you, Strategic Coach.
All this plethora of good conversation.
Yeah. Goodness.
And also for the work he does. I mean, I
Yeah.
appreciate what Dan Sullivan does for helping to put some of these high-intensity CEOs back on track.
Yeah. I think establish boundaries.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Spend more time with your family.
More time with friends and family and less time working.
Yep.
And everything gets better.
And when you think about the trickle down, you know, because if the CEO is doing it, then it gets trickled down to their leadership team, to the people within the companies, you know, and it becomes then the in general, communities become healthier and more balanced or have better boundaries.
And they perform better all at the same time.
Yep. Yeah, really more efficient. Love it.
Same.
All right. I guess that's it for us. Thank you all for listening.
Have a good day.
Have a great day.
Bye. Thanks again for joining us today. If you'd like to connect with us on social media, you can find Annamarie at Mindfully Annamarie. You can find myself at Emily VDW, and you can find Evan at _Evan Ryan. We'll talk to you next week.
Thank you for listening to Everyday Mindfulness. Have a great day.